This is a popular story with my family and most of my friends. Amanda is my brother's girlfriend. At the time of the story, she was looking for her first apartment and moving out of her parents' house. Her and my brother didn't want to move in together since they had only dated for a few months. She opted instead to search for a roommate on Craigslist. While browsing, she found an ad titled something like "Roommate Wanted, Females Only." This sort of thing was common, since the area she was looking in was mostly young professionals. The listing was for a room in a house for about $225 a month, which was quite cheap compared to most places listed. The occupant listed herself as a 23-year-old female college student that wasn't comfortable with living with any males. The other roommate would have their own room and a attached bathroom. So far, Amanda was into this place. However, the listing only had a single photo from the outside of the property. Amanda sent an email waiting to meet the occupant and tour the house. Within 30 minutes, she receives an email back and it has all the details and the time to stop by. The girl who had the house worked late hours and wanted Amanda to stop by 8 p.m. When Amanda arrives, there's a handwritten note on the front door saying, "Door broken, use back door." Walking around the house, it looks nice, but slightly unkept. There was tall grass, weeds, dusty windows, etc. Still no alarms for Amanda though. She goes to the back, and when she knocks on the door, an old man opens the door. At first, Amanda thinks she has the wrong house, but the man reassures her and says that the occupant, I forgot the name, was out, and he was the landlord. The occupant asked him to meet Amanda since she was working late. He seemed pleasant and offered to show her around. Alarms start going off, but they aren't red yet. First, the guy was clearly in his 40s, unshaven, and had looked like he was living in his car. Also, only the kitchen light was on as he walked around the house. Amanda noticed one really big red flag too. No furniture or anything. The landlord was polite about answering questions, but seemed slightly worried about keeping lights on for too long. He would rush her around and only let her look at the rooms for a few moments. There was a single room that the landlord wouldn't open, telling her that it was the occupant's room and he didn't want to invade her privacy. As he walked down the hallway into the living room, she notices the front door has a plank nailed across it. Amanda's creepometer is starting to ding, so she decides to wrap it up and leave, but trying to be polite as well. She's telling the guy thank you for showing her around and stuff like that, but then he perks up and states that he forgot to show her the basement. It's recently furnished and would be a great rec room, and then he says she should take a look down there. At the time, Amanda and the landlord were standing in the small hallway between the front living room and the back kitchen, and this little hallway was the basement door. When he opens the door, it opens outward to create something of a barrier between Amanda and the back door. The basement is pitch black. He smiles, motions down the stairs, and says, "Ladies first." What happens next is nothing more than a stroke of luck. Amanda gets a text as some random person parks in the front of the house. Thinking on her feet, she pretends it's a phone call and answers her phone. "Hey, yeah, are you here? I'll come out from around back and let you in. It's great, you have to see it." With a motion of confidence, she excuses herself around the landlord and walks out the back door, and the guy just looks at her very confused. Once outside, she sprinted to her car and sped like hell out of there. When Amanda got home, she told her mom and my brother everything that just happened. Cops were called. They took her statement and went to investigate. The Craigslist post had been removed. Epilogue. The house had been foreclosed over 6 months earlier, and the property had been abandoned. When the police investigated, they found that the closed room the landlord didn't want her to look in was where the man had been staying. There was a pile of dirty blankets, rotten food, and empty gallon jugs everywhere. More creepy was the basement. The man had tied a thin piece of fishing twine at about shin level across the stairs, about halfway down. The basement was empty except for one pile of old blankets, a broom handle wrapped in leather belts, and a few rolls of tape. Amanda ended up not moving in there. My boyfriend wrote his version of this story a month ago. but I wrote my perspective for a comment in another subreddit and thought it would be fitting here. A few weeks ago, I had to fly out to a small town I'd never been to in order to look for a place to live. I'm moving there in the fall to start my grad school. My boyfriend flew in with me, and before the trip, I researched all sorts of apartments on Craigslist and set up a bunch of appointments. Our first appointment was in the afternoon in this sort of remote residential area. The landlord sounded fine over email and asked me to call him an hour before the appointment to confirm I was coming. I called. He didn't answer, so my boyfriend and I started walking up to the house and just hoped he would show up. Maybe 10 minutes before the appointment, he called me. "Are you coming?" he asked. He sounded like an older man and had this very strange, slow way of talking, but I just thought he was older. "Yes, we're in the front of the house right now." He got extremely upset. "We? Oh, yes, my boyfriend's with me." "You never told me you had a boyfriend. You never said that." It had never crossed my mind to have to tell him this information, since my boyfriend would not be coming to live with me. He was just helping me look for apartments on the trip. Anyways, I told that to the man, and after a very long pause, he said, sorry, it's just sometimes people don't tell me they're married, and it surprises me. I'll see you soon." And then he hung up. I told my boyfriend about what the man had said, and he was immediately weirded out too. He wanted to leave, but there were slim pickings in terms of real estate at this point, so I stupidly said that we had to stay in case this place was the place. As we're discussing it, we see a man leave the house, the same house we're going to view. This man was young and extremely sketchy looking, greasy hair, dirty clothes, etc. He took one look at us and ran out of the house to his car and pulled away from the curb with a screech. Okay, so now we're really weirded out, but this isn't enough for us to bail just yet. And as we look at each other wondering what to do, the landlord arrives. He's in his 50s, very tall and very strong looking. His eyes are completely blank and empty of warmth and emotion. He slowly walks up to us and says, "I'd shake your hands, but mine are dirty." "What from?" my boyfriend asks. "Work," the man says in return. He asks us a lot of questions about me, completely ignoring my boyfriend. The entire time, he stares into my eyes without blinking. What am I going to school for? What other places am I considering for living? Is my boyfriend moving to this town too? I try to give answers that are vague as possible. Meanwhile, my boyfriend asks the landlord questions of the same kind, which he refuses to answer. Then he says, "Let me show you the basement." At this point, I should have noped out of there, but I didn't. I kept thinking it was an weird old man from a small town. We're city folk, by the way, and that we were just feeling paranoid. My boyfriend, on the other hand, wanted out of there, but he followed us as the man led us to the back of the house, away from the street, to this sort of detached shed. He opened the door, and we saw that there were stairs leading into utter darkness. He flipped the switch at the top of the stairs, and the light didn't come on. Normally, the response for this is, "Oh crap, light's out," or something like that, but he just said, and slowly walked down into the darkness. Then, he stood there, without moving, in the dark, and said, "Aren't you coming down?" "There's nothing to see if the lights are out," says my boyfriend. The landlord just stands there for a long time, then slowly walks up the stairs and closes the basement door without saying anything. He took us into the house. Weird and increasingly creepy things ensue. The front door, the only exit to the house, locked automatically, and when my boyfriend tried to fiddle with it, the man got really upset and told him to leave it alone. He managed to open it secretly though. The man kept trying to box us into small rooms and, according to my boyfriend, kept reaching his hands into his pockets, only to take them away when he caught us looking. On Craigslist and in person, the man claimed that there was a grad student already living in the house, but the evidence of that seemed false. There were neat piles of generic textbooks on the table, but not anything a 20-something-year-old might read. There was a bowl of fruit on the table, but no other fruit in the fridge or pantry, or utensils, nor silverware. There was maybe 3 t-shirts in the closet. The supposed grad student wasn't out of town, but the landlord couldn't say what school he went to or how long he'd been renting the house. Finally, the man had showed us every single room in the house but one. This one he refused to open, claiming it was just the attic, and we didn't need to see anything up there. He gave us several reasons when we inquired. It was unfinished, there was furniture up there, it would smell bad. This last one I believed, because standing there near the door, it smelled terrible. Finally, we made our excuses and bolted out of there. The man walked us out, pretending to go to his car and leave, and when he thought we had turned the corner, slowly went back into the house we saw. My boyfriend, fixated on the idea that there was something wrong with the guy, Googled the guy that night. We found 3 things: that he was a pillar of the community, known by a lot of townspeople, that there was no evidence of him owning or managing a real estate company, as he claimed on Craigslist, and that he listed his home address as the very house we had been touring, the house where the, quote, grad student lived. Update. After talking to my boyfriend, I decided to contact Craigslist and the police department with my info. The police say they'll drop by for a check-in, and I'm still waiting on a reply from Craigslist, but at least the ad is flagged and should hopefully be taken down soon. Thank you everyone for your words. Second update. Hey everybody, sorry it's been a few days, but I've been on vacation with my family and I haven't heard anything from the police until now. They sent me a message saying the information you provided has been reviewed and an investigation is in progress. I'll be scanning the papers and hoping they tell me about the results of the investigation, though it's highly unlikely. Third update. Hi all. So the police, I guess, got back to me about what happened when they went to the landlord's house. It is still creepy, and what happened afterwards might have been even more creepier. So for the past several weeks, I've been waiting to hear back from the police department. Yesterday, my curiosity got the better of me, and I asked them if anything had ever come up of the investigation that they said was, quote, in progress. I left a message and they got back to me today. From what I understand, the police used my information to perform a wellness check on the grad student who the landlord claimed lived in the house. The landlord came to the door and told them that the grad student had moved out already, and I think the guy gave the police a new address that the guy who was a grad student was living under, but I'm not entirely sure what went down because the officer was being very vague with me. Anyway, I guess the officer running the wellness check, a woman, still asked to look inside the home because it was a protocol to make sure the grad student wasn't actually in there, in need of aid or something. The landlord was very resistant, but had to let them inside. The police looked around and didn't find any evidence of the grad student being there, but she agreed with me that the landlord's behavior was just off. When I asked her about the attic and the basement, she paused and seemed hesitant to tell me anything. She said the landlord eventually let them look into the rooms to make sure the grad student wasn't in there. I asked her if she found anything. I think if there's anything in plain view, the police can arrest someone during a warrantless wellness check, and she again hesitated and eventually admitted that they couldn't find anything criminal, but there definitely was a strange smell in the attic, along with some carpet bags. At least that's what she told me. I guess they weren't allowed to open those to find out what was really in them. What really chilled me was she said she went into the basement while her partner waited at the top of the stairs, and she actually fell down the stairs because half the steps were broken up and strangely ragged, with some of them missing, but there was still nothing down there, nor any sign of the grad student, so the police left. This officer seemed new or young, but really dedicated to her job. I'm not entirely convinced she knows what she's doing, only because of the way she's talking. It was just a very youngish, not authoritative way of speaking, I guess, but she was really kind and sympathetic towards me when I first came forward with my information. When I asked if that was the end of it, she told me she was trying. I don't really know what that means. I get the feeling that there's not much she can do legally, though I'm not sure, as she didn't say so herself. She said that the investigation is still, quote, in progress, and then she asked if I was comfortable ever coming to the station to talk to her in person once I moved to that town. So that's that, for now at least. I'm not really sure where any of this is going, if that's the end of it, or if that's just the most the police can do. Or even if this police officer is really going to do anything to pursue it and uncover anything. I really don't know. In some ways, I feel helpless and confused. And in others, I'm not sure if I'm relieved that they didn't find dead bodies. And if I want that to be the end of it, I don't know. Also, this could be and probably is unrelated, but I received an email from an unknown sender today. All it said was it you? Creepy. There was a link in the email that I foolishly clicked on, but my computer's antivirus software caught a virus from it and neutralized it, as well as destroyed the infected email. I ran more scans on my computer to make sure it was clean, and was only after that I wondered if the email wasn't just the typical spam, but a message from the landlord himself. I'm probably just being paranoid, but that's the update for anyone who's interested. Maybe there will be more to come in the future, although I certainly hope not. Thanks for sticking with me this far, Reddit. I feel good in knowing someone is on my side. You all have inspired me to be the kind of person who does something instead of standing back and hoping that there's nothing wrong. This happened last year, around this season. While I was broke and struggling to make ends meet, I had just moved out, and I didn't want to resort to going back to my parents. Anyways, I was so desperate, I was looking on Craigslist for caregiver/housekeeping type gigs, just to make quick cash while I looked for my FT position. After responding to several, I got a bite back from a man who had advertised as a disabled man who needed help with his morning and evening routines since he had a bad back. As a past caregiver, I thought nothing of his request to help with bathing and dressing, since I knew it could be difficult for some. After chatting on the phone and coming to the conclusion that he was nice and normal, I proceeded to head over to his townhouse late one night to help him with his nighttime routine. He lived a bit out of the way from me, but I was desperate and I didn't mind. He even said I could spend the night since he'd need me for the morning anyways. Once I got there, he was decent looking and was in his 30s or early 40s with a cane. He paid me $200 up front for the expected nighttime and morning routine the next day. He explained he was ex-military and had back surgery recently. Things started to get weird once he offered me some drinks and commented how cute he thought I was. I should have seen that as a big red flag. But again, I was super poor, but I didn't want to cheat him, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He led me to his bedroom where he got undressed for his evening shower. After quickly giving him the most untouching shower in the most platonic way I could, he got out and said he was heading off to bed, but I didn't want to wear any clothes. The guest bedroom where I was to stay was right next to us, and though I was tired, I was still pretty on edge. My gut instinct was telling me to get the hell out of there. The issue was that we were on a 3-story townhouse, and we were on the top floor, and he had installed baby gates on each floor so his cat doesn't run away. Also, he turned off all the lights on the lower floors so it was pitch black. In order for me to get out, I'd have to pass his room. I quietly arranged my stuff in my purse while I heard his TV blaring, and to my horror, I saw him walk swiftly to his bathroom without his cane. I realized he was not as disabled as he told me, since he had previously put on an act as if he couldn't walk without it. As quickly and quietly as I could, I fled and ran like hell out of that room while he was in the bathroom and jumped like an Olympic sprinter over the cat gates down the dark stairs. As I threw the front door open to run to my car, I heard his house alarm go off. I got in my car as fast as lightning, heart beating like crazy. I immediately got phone calls from his number, and every car that trailed me had me terrified until I got out of there. Finally, after a 2-hour drive, I was back to my place and grateful I was out of there. Who knows what could have happened if I had stayed overnight, but I didn't want to stay to find out.